So today I'll be giving you some very useful tips about the different things in Palworld. I've put a lot of hours into this game, and at the same time, I have also picked up a bunch of useful tricks that I will be sharing with you guys. So if you find this video useful, definitely make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and let's begin with the content. So the first one is going to be about the Lily Spear. This weapon is not the best, especially if you're comparing the weapons by their stats, because it only has 450 attack, and the sword, which is the best melee weapon, has 525. But the reason why this weapon is so good is that you can basically use it as your all-in-one tool. If you animation cancel and you do it right, this weapon can actually hit faster than any other melee tool or weapon in the game. So basically how this works is that you would want to hit the crouch button immediately after the weapon hits. You will have to keep on repeating this until you completely break the resource that you're hitting, or just before you run out of stamina. You are going to be able to farm wood and different mining nodes a lot faster, and you can also dish out more DPS. Another good thing about this is that, compared to the refined metal axe and pickaxe, Lily's Spear actually has better durability. So not only are you logging trees and mining ores a lot faster, but you are also getting better durability compared to the high tier tools. You're gonna be able to unlock this weapon at level 40, and you're also gonna have to use ancient technology points to be able to craft this. So the second tip is going to be about reviving your pals. So normally, once your pals get taken out, you actually have to wait for 10 minutes for them to be revived inside of your pal box. But a very easy and faster way to do it is by using a viewing cage. You can unlock this item at level 15, and what this item is actually for is for you to be able to place your pals inside of your base without having to worry about their hunger. In exchange, they won't be able to do any work or fight against invading enemies. But if you have a pal that needs to be revived, all you have to do is to place them inside the viewing cage, and your pal is going to be revived instantly after you take them out. There's another method where you basically place the incapacitated pal inside of your pal box, and your other pals with transporting will be able to drag them all the way to your pal beds and revive them that way. But I think that using the viewing cage is a lot faster, just because you don't need to rely on your other pals to revive them. Alright, so moving on, the next one is going to be about the dungeon bosses in this game. So whenever you enter a dungeon, you're gonna be fighting a bunch of enemies, and then at the end, there's going to be a boss that is essentially a bigger version of the regular pals. But if you don't like, or you don't need to capture the first boss that you see, you can essentially reroll the boss by simply going back to the previous room. You need to move away from the boss so that the boss is going to despawn and get replaced by a new one. This can be useful if you are trying to look for certain pals, especially in higher level dungeons, so definitely keep this in mind. Alright, so next up, a lot of you probably know this, but if you haven't, there's actually a bug or glitch that lets you equip your armor in different slots. All you have to do is to wear any kind of headpiece, body, shield, glider, and accessory, and if you drag the armor that you're wearing into any other piece of armor in your backpack, you will actually be able to wear that piece of armor, even if it's not in the right slot. So what's interesting about this is that you can basically make different combinations that will fit your needs. If you want to take advantage of this, I recommend wearing a heat-resistant piece of armor and also a cold-resistant one. You no longer have to switch between two different armors when you're adventuring into cold or hot areas, and if you're using the heat or cold-resistant pal metal armor, then you're essentially getting the highest possible defense increase from a non-legendary item. And if you wanted to, shields are also going to work, so having multiple means that you are going to have a bigger and bigger shield. And on top of that, if you replace your glider with a shield or piece of armor, you can actually glide for much longer, you can also shoot while gliding, and your character will be T-posing. And before moving on, there's actually one more trick that you can do that is related to this one. So if you replace your glider with any piece of armor, you are still going to get the ability to glide, but you will also be descending a lot slower. But on top of that, one more thing that you can do is that you can essentially have the properties of any pal gliding ability and make it semi-permanent. So for you to do this, you're going to need a pal with the ability to glide. So for example, you have Hangyu and Galeclaw. So first, make sure that your character is T-posing when you glide. Next up, get yourself a pal that can glide and also craft their pal gear. And after you get those ready, what you need to do is you need to stand beside the pal box, and what you would want to do is very quickly start gliding in place using your pal, open the pal box, and put your gliding pal back inside. And if you follow the steps correctly, then you should be able to glide as if you still had your gliding pal in your party. Although, one thing to keep in mind is that there is a bug within this bug. Sometimes you are not going to be able to attack after you do this, but in order to fix that, all you have to do is to glide while your gliding pal is in your team, and after that, everything should go back to normal. One more thing that you might have missed is that there is actually a repair all option for when you are using the repair bench. It's very easy to miss because you're probably more focused on the items on the screen, and the text for this feature is also kinda small. But when you press R on your keyboard, or Y if you're using a controller, then you will actually be able to repair all of the items in your backpack all at once. It's also going to show you the cost of repairing all of your items, so this is definitely a very useful feature because you no longer have to repair your items one by one. So moving on, the next tip is about building, and this is when you are trying to build something in your base, but you have to stand outside of the pal box radius. So instead of going to your storage, taking all of the required materials, and then building outside of the pal box radius, all you have to do is to build the structure anywhere on your base and simply disassemble the structure so that the materials will go back to your backpack. I find this useful for when I'm trying to replace my main gate because it's easier to build standing outside of the circle, specifically when it comes to those kinds of structures. For this next one, it's going to be about your pals and how you would want to use them in combat. Every single pal in the game will have different abilities with different cooldowns, so it's important for you to cycle through your whole team whenever you're up against enemies. When you take a look at their skills, you're going to see their damage type, power, and then you also have CT, which is the cooldown timer. So I'm bringing this up because some pals actually have really good abilities, but those abilities are on a very long cooldown. For example, Jet Dragon has Fireball, which is a really strong ability that can one-shot level 30 enemies, but this is on a 55-second cooldown. And also, generally speaking, the stronger the ability is in terms of damage, the longer the cooldown is. So what I recommend is that when you're hunting, fighting a boss, or just fighting enemies in general, what you would want to do is to cycle between your pals so that you don't feel the need to swap out the broken abilities for weaker ones that have a shorter cooldown. In the beginning, this was actually one of my mistakes, where I decided to go with a weaker ability with a shorter cooldown so that my pal can attack more often. I did this because I thought that my pal is going to deal more damage because he's attacking more times, but having multiple pals with really strong abilities, even if their cooldown is really long, is going to be better, especially if you know how to manage the rotations on their cooldowns. So yeah, hopefully some, if not all of these tips were useful, and if you found this video helpful, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.